So, yeah, like I'm really only gonna ask you maybe 3 or 4 questions,
Okay.
and then, okay, Michelle, I had the pleasure of connecting with you recently at a campaign event right here in Boyle Heights, just at about this time last week, actually. So it's really cool to kind of come full circle on that meeting now. And the reason we're speaking today is because I'm very curious about how you got to organizing and volunteering work, even beyond the work that you do, which involves that already. I'm curious how you have kind of like tacked on more work to your already incredibly busy work schedule because you believe that it's worth doing so, that the investment is headed somewhere. So, if it's okay with you, maybe you can introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about your work as well as how you came to last week's event right here in Boyle Heights, and then I can ask you a few more questions
Yeah,
from there.
definitely. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Michelle. I'm a middle school teacher. I teach 8th grade at a middle school in the Hyde Park community that borders South Central Inglewood. And I've been teaching 8th grade ELA for about 9 years now. But I'm a lifelong resident of the Southeast LA community. So I'm originally from Linwood, and I live there. Yeah, and I truly believe that teaching is what really politicized me. I think, for a really long time, I've always been interested in politics. I've done the formal education, K through 12. I went to college. I got my master's. But it's interesting because teaching really like pushed my politics even further. I think it made me very aware of the system that we live under and how our kids are punished by it in so many ways, whether it's poverty, the lack of quality education in the classroom because of the conditions that, they have to learn under, that I as a teacher have to work under. And so I remember in 2020, I think we all remember 2020 very well. I think that was like the pivotal moment for me of like, I can't just be a passive, I can't just passively oppose the system. I have to like actively get involved and actually fight for something. And I think that summer we all saw with, the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all the countless victims of police brutality that I actually needed to do more, even beyond teaching, because, a lot of people can say like, yeah, teaching, you're doing meaningful work, like you're doing the God's work, right? But I felt that I needed to do something even more beyond that. And so that's when I started organizing in my community, all across LA. Fast forward campaigns 2026. I'm part of the Vote Socialist California campaign team. I'm a volunteer, and I think that last week was definitely very exciting because we saw people come out because people are tired of the two ruling parties, not just in California, but in the country. Like people for decades have been like under the stranglehold of the Democratic Party. We've been told oftentimes what they're going to promise us, and they haven't fulfilled anything. Our lives get harder and harder every day, every year. Gas prices are going up. The affordability crisis in California is insane. And so what we're doing in our campaigns is we're really providing an alternative to the people, right? We want to show them that there is a third option that we can vie for and that we can really fight for. And so that's how that event came about last week. And so it was really great to see people like you and other volunteers come out to really show support for the campaigns.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as you know, these campaigns and these organizations, they're very people powered. Like you sort of see the final product from start to finish, right? Like you see how many people it takes to put together a social like Lalo Alcaraz's party last week. And you also see how many people connect through that because they need spaces through which they can connect, right? And so I think communities here very much find themselves having to develop new spaces in places that maybe should have had political organizing room quite some time ago. And yet we have to devise these things because this is also what we know how to do best at this point in time when we've just had so much experience making do with very little and squeezing water out of stones, as they say, because that is just all we have. Which is also something that we, as the children of immigrants, one might say, are well versed in as well, right? So it's interesting because now when I hear you describe what's next, I feel like what you're talking about is political organizing that is for the people and by the people from start to finish. No in-betweens and no middlemen or someone telling us how this movement is going to go, but really something that is for us and by us for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what the Vote Socialist California campaigns are about. It's building a California for the people and not for the billionaires, because we know that it's the billionaires that are really putting us in this crisis, right? Under this system that we call capitalism, a system that really prioritizes profit over the needs of people and the planet. And so isn't it insane that in California, we're the fourth largest economy in the world, and yet we have so many crises in this state, whether it's the climate crisis, an affordability crisis. So many people are unhoused in this state. There's also the fact that 7% of Californians, of the Black population, 30% of them are disproportionately unhoused. And so just those issues are unacceptable, given how large our economy is and the fact that so many of us contribute to it, whether we're documented or not documented. And yet only 194 billionaires hoard that wealth. So I think that, people need to understand that there is an alternative for them that is actually fighting for the working class interests. And so when we're door knocking in the streets, we really, without even saying socialism, right? We talk about housing should be a right, that everyone deserves a lifelong education from cradle to beyond, right? To college. Everyone, and the fact that we all deserve healthcare, like all of those things are so common sense to our people, and they totally agree with it. They're down with the program. And so I think when we meet people where they're at, because we know that our people are confronted with all the crises that I just laid out, they really know what it feels like. And I think when we provide them with these concrete solutions and not just be like, like giving these promises that carry no weight, there's no plan behind it, there's no backing behind it, I think people really dig the program. And so the amazing thing about the Vote Socialist campaigns as well is that we're running 5 different candidates on the state slate. So we have Ramsey Robinson, he's running for governor. We have Alice Steck, who's running for lieutenant governor. We have Lalo Vargas, who's running for insurance commissioner. Frank Lara, who's running for superintendent of public instruction for California schools. And we have Megan Adams running for state controller. We have 5 socialists, right, that are lifelong organizers that are running on these campaigns together side by side and are really popularizing a program that is truly about putting people's needs first.
Now, especially because you mentioned having a slate of candidates, having a number of folks who also have organizing experience who are now running for these incredibly prominent positions for California government, if not the California legislature. I'm curious what you think about the contention that to vote for a Ramsey Robinson, to vote for an Alice Steck, to vote for a Lalo is to throw away a vote because there's no way that mathematically the state of California or the electorate in California would nominate these folks, that enough of them would nominate these folks to those offices. We would just respond very viscerally that, like, there's no way that California is ready for any such anything even approximating socialism. And in fact, like Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, left the state of California at some point last year just upon hearing about the very possibility of a wealth tax. And so there are people who say, of course, as you know, if we institute socialism, you're going to chase out all the billionaires, and that's going to dramatically wreck the economy in California. And so no way that we should be taxing these folks. We should, in fact, maybe tax less. I know that's a lot all in one sitting, but start where you think is best, and then by all means we can take this question in parts.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your first question, right, about the throwing away the votes, right? If you vote for a third party option. In my entire lifetime, and especially in my time of, being able to vote, I'm 30 years old, by the way. So I've, been able to participate in multiple elections. And I always hear that argument, right? For a really long time, I've voted third party option because I've always seen from the beginning that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two ruling parties that are dominated by corporation interests, billionaires, and I, in good conscience, cannot vote for someone that is going to enable my oppression, my exploitation anymore. And I think for as young as I was, like, I knew that immediately, even before I became a socialist. And so when are we going to finally break away from these two parties? We have to. We're not going to do that if every election cycle we are beholden to the Democratic Party. And so our voting for a third party option is not throwing away a vote, but it's making a conscious decision that I'm sending a clear message to the billionaire class, to the Democratic Party, to the Republican Party, that I, along with other people in California, working people, are not going to further support these parties. It's time that we need something new, and we need something better that's actually going to represent us. Not just say that we represent the working class, but like actually do something. And that is actually working class people in power, right? So, and that's the amazing thing about the both socialist California candidates, is that they're all working class people. Ramsey Robinson, he's a social worker up in the Bay Area. Lalo Vargas is a high school environmental science teacher. Like, those are the people that I want in office, because we're the ones that actually understand what it's like to go through the struggle. And additionally, you asked the second question about
how like socialism maybe has no place in California, because in fact, like, if we socialize everything and start to give everything away, this is a very popular argument, then California will run further into the ground than it somehow already has.
Yeah.
But we should, in fact, not tax billionaires. We should invite more of them, and maybe deregulate, make it easier for them to build, make it easier for them to innovate, and so on and so forth, so as to grow the economy as it should, since that's at least theoretically how the market is supposed to work. What do you make of the argument that California can't become socialist?
Yeah, I think that argument is really meant to scare us, right? It's meant to scare people into thinking that we somehow need billionaires, when we, in fact, don't. We're the ones that make society run with our labor, and if it wasn't for us, they would not have the wealth that they hoard right now. I mentioned earlier that, we live in the fourth largest economy in the world. 1.4 trillion of the $4 trillion that California has alone is hoarded by a small group of billionaires. That is ridiculous, when it's us who is producing their own wealth that they end up hoarding. So I think that kind of argument is just not valid, and it's really meant to scare us. And additionally, one of the candidates running for governor is a billionaire, and he's actually the one who has self-funded his own campaign, and a very small amount of his campaign fundraising comes from people. So to me, that doesn't sound like democracy, right? And so I think that what is very clear is that people are tired of, being told all these lies I think our people are much more smarter than they think they are. Like, they know that they're hungry for something new. Additionally, all the candidates on the Vote Socialist California slate, they're running under the Peace and Freedom Party, which is not the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. It is an explicitly socialist party that was founded in 1967, decades ago, at the height of the anti-war movement, at the height of these national liberation movements that were springing up. And the Peace and Freedom Party created a coalition with the Black Panther Party, and they all got together. They collected thousands of signatures that they needed to get ballot access, because they knew at that time that the people were not happy with the Vietnam War. They were not happy with the crises that were happening here at home. And so they knew then, right, that we needed a new party that is actually going to be for the people, by the people. And so I believe that we have a historic responsibility to not only maintain that legacy, but to continue fighting for it and growing that vision, especially now when we're actually living in a very similar situation where I think people are not happy with the wars that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are funding, the genocide that they're funding abroad, and also the attacks in our community, right? A lot of these the Democratic Party is funding ICE and is funding genocide in Palestine. So I think I believe, and I think a lot of people in California believe, that we can no longer do that. That is unacceptable. And so that's what I would say.
Of course. Very well said. And I have to ask you in closing what the biggest needs are for the Peace and Freedom Party, or for the Lalo Alcaraz campaign, or for any of these socialist platforms are right now as we approach the election. It's May tomorrow. It's Workers' Day, International Workers' Day, just tomorrow. And so people are going to start getting ballots, mail-in ballots, in just a little over a week and a half out there. And so my question to you is, what kind of support these various organizing coalitions are in need of right now for those who are out there wondering how they can show up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm happy you brought up May Day, because May Day is tomorrow. At the time of this recording, it's April 30th. And so tomorrow there's going to be a big demonstration in MacArthur Park to really show that, worker solidarity. It's interesting because it's a holiday that is internationally recognized by so many countries, and yet it's a holiday that started here in the United States. But the United States doesn't recognize it as a holiday. We do it, the workers recognize it as a holiday, but the government doesn't. But yes, how we can support the Peace and Freedom Party? Well, I think first, people need to register Peace and Freedom Party, because that is going to send that message to, the ruling parties, to the billionaire class, like, oh, Californians, like, they don't fuck with us anymore. They want something new. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of when the working class gets together and organizes something, a vehicle for change, right? Additionally, we need more volunteers. So we need more people to come door knocking with us on the weekends, throughout the week, all across California. And the way that you can volunteer is by, if you search up votesocialistca.com, you'll find all the events near you where you can volunteer. We're actually having another mixer this Sunday in Boyle Heights, down the street from here. We're having it at Ya Cafe. We're calling it Cafecito y Socialismo. So come get your coffee, come talk to other volunteers who are also interested in our campaigns, and just want to, build community with other people, who want to fight for something new.
Damn. I mean, seriously, what a pleasure and what an honor to hear this, to learn about these events, and to do so right here in Boyle Heights, this historically working class immigrant neighborhood where we just dined at. Shout out to Un Solo Sol too for lending us this time and space this evening. We loved your al pastor bowls as well as the pozole. And which taco did you get?
Al pastor taco.
Oh, you had an al pastor taco too. Wow.
Bomb.
Seriously, Carlos, and to all of Boyle Heights, it's nothing but love. Please let the city know. And thank you once again, Michelle. Seriously.
Thank you so much.
What a joy.
Yeah.
For real, for real.